Hi, Ellen.
Whoop. Okay, that's a junk mail. Gonna ignore it.
Control spam. Control spam. Control spam.
You know, you can take off your mask.
I have to run down and make copies for Melissa.
Oh, okay.
No, I can't.
No.
I'll be right back.
Damn. Didn't work. Get in there. Stupid thing. Get in. Hi, Jim.
Ella, is your fiber cable, is it hanging in there? Hasn't fallen down?
Well, we went through a problem when they took the siding off the house.
Oh, really? What happened?
They broke it
Oh. Who
again.
paid?
And it was interesting. The guy who came to fix it commented that the cable they use is nowhere near as strong as the ones that are used by the cable companies, which I found very interesting.
Well, the ones that are used by the cable companies, that's a different kind of cable altogether. That's
Oh, I don't know.
it's coaxial
Coax
cable.
cable.
Yeah, coax
Okay.
cable, and that's
Well,
like,
then maybe I misunderstood him, because the implication was if we got somebody other than his company to come, it would be better cable.
no.
I don't get it.
No.
Nope.
The fiber optic cables are all made up. They are, the fiber doesn't take up very much room, so to
Yeah.
speak, inside of a cable harness, and that's the way they're made, and they're pre-made, you know, with connectors on either end, because you
Yeah.
can't touch them. You can't, the ends, if you touch them, it'll screw them up, completely.
Completely.
But coax is much
Oh,
stronger.
yeah,
It'll take a lot
definitely.
more abuse, but it's a different animal altogether.
Oh, okay, thank you. Don't mind me, I'm sewing.
That's
I have to reinforce some buttons on a coat. There. Hi, Michael, thank you for the minutes. Hi, AJ.
Hey, Ellen, how you doing?
I'm wonderful. How about you?
Good.
That's good. Now, are your children still having to mask up to go to school? I don't know what the rules are. It's so complicated right now.
Yes, but at least they're in school. So
Yeah, I know. That's exactly it. They're in school.
they're out of the house.
That
Yeah.
must have been liberated. You work at home, AJ?
I do, yeah.
Oh,
I mean, Normally I'm going back and forth between New York and home, but since the pandemic, it's just been home. But,
New York City or some other place in New York?
yeah, Brooklyn.
Brooklyn,
Mhm.
that's New York City.
Yep.
They may not like it, but it is.
But I did find out yesterday, my son plays for the tennis team, and they've been, they have to wear masks while they
That's
play.
hard.
But that is changing on I guess the 17th. That was yesterday. 27th, maybe it is. Yeah.
No, 17th, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, and some schools are refusing to do it.
Yeah.
Some of the teams in some of the schools.
Yeah, the athletic director sent an email. So I guess it's any outdoor sports activity no longer requires.
Well, to me, that makes sense. It really does. I mean, the idea of trying to breathe when you're playing a sport like tennis, anything but golf, shall we say, could be very difficult if you got a mask on.
Yeah. No, I know. I get tired sometimes just like, if I'm like walking and talking, I don't know, like
Right,
playing a tennis match seems.
right. What year in high school is he in?
He's a senior. So he's
So
wrapping up.
where's he going next year?
He's going to George Washington University.
Oh, neat.
Oh,
in
nice.
DC. Yeah.
Yeah, what's he going to study? Does he have any idea?
He's going to the business school there, but
Good.
he doesn't totally know, like
No, but at least
I expect him to either. But it'll be something like he's interested in public policy also and economics, and he's like so. But he's
well, business isn't a bad thing to study, though, in general, because at least then you have a potential of a job,
right. Yeah.
to be blunt.
Yes. which is a big concern of his. Yes.
Well, it's a big concern. It should be a big concern of a lot of kids, and it isn't.
Yeah, right. But he's really excited though. I mean, it's like he's been ready to go.
Now, is he
So
your
what-
only?
No, I've got three. So I've got another high schooler currently a sophomore, and then I've got a sixth grader at the elementary school.
Oh, so then that person will be making the big switch over to the
Yes,
middle school.
middle school, and they're definitely ready.
Oh, I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, we came like from a place where like you had middle school 6th through 8th, and
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's still like a little bit of a shock that
Yes.
they're in 6th grade and still in elementary school.
Right.
Huh.
Yeah, it is. It's interesting. Where did you come from, if you don't mind my asking?
From Brooklyn. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You got out of there just in time, I'd say.
Yeah, that's right. This was a far more pleasant place to be this year.
Oh, yeah.
than
Yeah.
Brooklyn. Yeah.
Yeah, our nephew's wife, so our niece-in-law, whatever you want to call her,
Yeah.
actually spent almost the whole pandemic as a nurse in one of the
Mhm.
hospitals.
Oh yeah.
It was awful.
Yeah,
Awful. She's now changed jobs. She's doing like something about COVID control for like, she was originally working for like Amazon, and now I don't know who
Uh-huh.
she's working for, but she got to the point where she just couldn't do it.
right.
I mean,
Yeah.
how often when you're seeing people die all the time, can you deal with it?
Yep. No, it was tough.
It was real tough.
Yeah.
Real tough. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. And therefore we have a quorum, and it
Yeah.
is now 4:04. So therefore, pardon?
There's a good chance that Bob cannot attend today.
Yeah.
I think that's what he said, right, AJ?
Yeah, that was his expectation. I think he's on a ferry.
Well, yeah, and that's a good reason why he couldn't.
Yeah.
If he was on either end of the ferry, he could probably,
Yeah. No, I think he
get.
might literally be on the ferry right now.
Yeah. Wouldn't be surprised. Okay, then. Well, so therefore I call the meeting to order. Okay, before we do anything, have you all gotten the minutes from April 21st?
Yes.
And have you read them? Yeah,
You're not
good.
supposed to ask that now.
Well,
Yeah.
it's easier to ask. Okay, then, do I have a motion pertaining to these minutes?
I guess I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from April 21st.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, so motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
You could say it all together, you know. Okay, great. Okay, so therefore the minutes are approved, and of course, Michael, you know, you've got to get it to the town clerk, and you're really good at doing that. Okay, so our agenda is essentially to the whole next 25 minutes is supposed to be taken to discuss the elementary school heating systems control next steps. So, as I understand it, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, those of you who were at the finance committee meeting last night, first of all, it was agreed upon apparently, oh God, Bob just found out that we really do need an engineer, and he managed to locate one and get a quote, and Becky got a quote from another one. So now we have at least 2 quotes. And therefore the cost was approximately $17,000 for the engineering, and plus or minus, you know, up to 17,000. And that has already, as I understand it, been put on the warrant article as a warrant article. Am I correct? For those people who are on finance.
Yep, we approved a transfer of up to $17,000 of stabilization funds for
And of course,
design and engineering.
great.
That's what I have in
Thank
my
you.
notes.
I was very glad that you all, you know, did that. It made it much easier. And there again, we still don't know. I mean, the school may be able to pick it up, or, you know, the COVID money maybe pick it up, or who knows. But the main thing is that we have it on there to get it approved so we can get that engineering done. So then the next thing is to work on the article pertaining to the funding of the actual work. Now, as you recall from a while back, we had 2 tentative quotes, the highest of which was, I believe, $160,000. But since we don't know if that's going to be enough, because, you know, that was once again a tentative quote, and depending on what the engineer shows, that I would like to talk about the idea of going not to exceed $200,000 contingent on grant funding. In other words, if we get a grant, then we won't have to appropriate any money, because we're kind of hoping that the COVID money, that we don't know where it's supposed to go and what it's supposed to be used for yet, could be used for some, if not all, of this work, which would be wonderful. But so if we do a warrant article, you know, up to $200,000 contingent on grant funding not being available. That's what I should have said. I missed those last 3 words. So in other words, if the grant funding comes in, then we don't have to spend the money. And if we don't, then we have it appropriated. And how do you all feel, my committee feel on that? We have to do something to get it in. It has to be done this year, and it has to be done this summer. Because every year, the more time we take, you know, the clock is ticking, and the subject to getting all kinds of problems, and we sure don't want problems in the winter. I remember when the furnace at the town hall went in the middle of winter. That was no fun.
Bad.
So I guess
Go ahead.
if I could just chime in for a sec. I mean,
Please,
I think
you're on the committee. Feel free.
I think, I mean, it seemed to me that there was a lot of support in our earlier discussions for the idea of doing a substantial improvement to the control systems and getting away from the pattern of these sort of piecemeal ad hoc kinds of repairs and fixes that don't, you know, that it seems like there's been a long history of these kind of temporary solutions that just sort of get us through another increment of time, but aren't like substantially dealing with the situation. So I guess the only thing that strikes me as a little sort of awkward about the idea of that warrant is that we're sort of allocating money for engineering and design, and I'm assuming that one of the products of that work is going to be a recommendation for kind of what needs to occur. And so it seems a little bit like to specify a number now before we have that, before we have the results of that that engineering study. I don't know, just like what if they come back and they say, well, actually it's a bigger project than $200,000 because it's not just about the control systems, but it's, I don't know, doing something
Piping or
substantial.
something.
And yeah, I don't know, but so I guess that's the only thing that would seem a little sort of backwards about having a warrant article that allocates money for design and engineering, and then in the same meeting having a second warrant article that sort of allocates money for what we assume is going to be a bigger project, but we don't exactly know what it is.
Becky, can you explain what would happen if we didn't have an appropriation for the actual work on a warrant? We'd probably either have to wait till fall to a special town meeting in the fall, which has to be done early because otherwise then we have trouble setting the tax rate, which means then we have trouble getting I have trouble getting the tax bills out. So it'd have to be done like August or September at the latest. I know that from experience. I always pray you never have one, deals with money. Okay, or what? We wait till next year, which is what we don't want to do. Am I correct?
I think I guess a third option is if when the engineering's complete, ideally you could have a special town meeting at that point. But I think the concern has been with all we've gone to how doable that's going to be this summer. But with the governor coming out strongly for opening things up more, it might be that a special town meeting, it's just that sometimes people feel like if you have a special town meeting in July, like in the beginning of July, for a couple $100,000, it potentially, if it's this year when people can vacation again and aren't hostage like they were last summer, the attendance at that meeting could be 20 people.
I've seen it.
There's sometimes we get objections that, oh, you passed that in the dead of night when nobody was here. I mean, in fact, they said that about the last one when we had almost 200 people.
Well, and I think there's also the opposite sort of potential, which is that like a small kind of mobilized minority of people who are committed to like not spending money to improve the school might like just make sure that they all show up at a special town meeting, and if there's only 20 people there and 15 members of that group show up, then that doesn't necessarily reflect the will of the town at large. So I get that concern.
And I think you're right, AJ. And I think that's why we've tried to avoid summer special town meetings, and at least in the fall,
I see you.
more people have the opportunity to get there because they're more likely to be in town.
Michael, I see Michael's waving his pen, so I assume he wants to speak.
Oh, you're muted, Mike.
Michael, you're muted.
I've been under the impression that the role of this committee is to decide whether something needs to be done and not how the money is raised. Is that not correct?
Correct.
So that this discussion that we're having now, all very nice and well and good, but it really isn't what this committee is supposed to decide. This committee should say whether or not we think that this work should be done. And I don't feel like there's much dissension on this committee that the work needs to be done, and it seems like it's up to the finance committee or whoever else to decide where the money comes from and how to raise the money. That's just the impression that I have from having been on the committee for a while.
I would agree with that. I think that the only, I guess what seems less clear to me though is what the scope of the work is.
Right. Well, we
So-
don't know that.
We don't
So
know.
We don't know it, right?
But that's
So then
a
it's like-
separate issue. Yes, it's a.
Right. But then it's like, well, so then how do you Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Becky.
Oh, I think, Michael, I agree with you, but in this case, like you said, whether the work should be done or not. And so in this case, because this is work again at the school and you only have a limited amount of time when you can work in the school. So it really limits when work can get done. So if there isn't some kind of conversation with the finance committee that, you know, there's a concern about how to keep this project moving after the engineering work gets done, and maybe just, I think that's what we're talking about. How can is there any possible way this work can happen in the summer?
Yeah,
This summer.
And
I agree with that assessment. I just think that our role was to say, we think that a way should be figured out to proceed with this in the summer,
Yep.
and not to say what that method is, but that's, because I certainly don't know enough about how the town finances work and so forth to decide on that. And I think I probably do know enough to know that the work needs to be done. It needs to be designed first, however, and we can visit recriminations as to why it took so long to make that decision, but that's not going to help us either. So,
Steve, do you have any input? Sorry, Ellen.
Yeah, no, that's fine. No, thank you.
Yeah, just that we need to get it done.
Thank you, Steve.
Go ahead, Jim. I usually don't call on other people from, you know, that aren't members, but go ahead. Since you're the only
Foreigners,
one
yes,
here,
go
I'll be
ahead.
glad to call on you.
Well, I've seen the proposal from Hillel Engineering in Greenfield, and it's a very competent, looks like a very thorough engineering study will be done. They will say exactly what components need to be bought, the whole 9 yards, and they'll also follow through and be sure that the work is done correctly. And then once you get that study complete, then it goes out to bid. And we have two people, Nexus and I think Jamrog, both of them are interested in doing the work. And of course, as you know, the bids are far apart. But once this engineering study is done and a list of what needs to be done and exactly what components are supposed to be used is formalized, then the bids can become much tighter and more accurate, and we can decide who we're going to go with. And we can only guess at this point what it's going to cost, but I think the finance committee would be open to having a figure of some sort that up to that we could spend on all this project. And don't underestimate the ability of federal money to pay for a good chunk of this. And I just, we have to find some way to spend $510,000, which is going to come our way. Becky will tell you all about it, of course, but we have to find ways to do it. And boy, I think the school is just the way to go. And remember also that there are two aspects to this. There's the initial sort of repair of the existing heating system and ventilation, and putting in all digital controls, having web access to it. I mean, it's a major transition. Getting rid of the pneumatic control system that's in there now, all of that is going to be gone, and that's what definitely needs to be done this summer. But there's also the second part, which is putting in a state-of-the-art ventilation system that we think that we can get money for, because ventilation is something that is much easier to get money for from the federal government, and that's a secondary situation, and that's going to be a ton of money too. But I think by the time that time comes around, we'll be able to get the feds to pay for most of this, which is what we all are hoping for.
Well, that's why we say subject, so much money, contingent on grant funding not being available, because hopefully, as you say, the federal government is going to come across. We know they're coming across allegedly with a certain amount of money.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't know for sure because we haven't gotten the check yet. But supposedly if we are, wire transfer, but anyway, but if we do get that kind of money, then it's a matter of what are the parameters that they allow us to use it for. And that I don't think anybody knows yet, unless you've heard something, Becky, recently.
I did go to one workshop on it. There's another one on Thursday and another one on Tuesday. The guidance is really, they have a body of 180 pages and
Oh,
they're
jeez.
clarifying the language for infrastructure, but they're referring under infrastructure that if it assists in preventing the spread of COVID or, you know, if it medically helps to control the pandemic, then it would be considered. So it's not as clear as, you know, if we were talking about water or sewer infrastructure, we'd know, we'd be working on the plans, we'd be figuring out the cost. But they haven't put language that clear yet, but hopefully it'll be in the state sorting through the federal guidance, they'll get the clarity that we need, and hopefully by this coming week. But that's the optimism in me. So the finance committee is joining the committee
Yes.
in full at 4:30.
So we have another 8
Talk
minutes.
more about this. So I think that's.
So I guess I could just sort of put my cards on the table and say that, like, I would support a motion of sorry, I should say, I would support the idea of a warrant along the lines of what you described, Ellen, you know, contingent on grant funds not being available, up to, you know, roughly the amount of, I think, the Nexus estimate, which was around 200,000. Is that?
I think it was like 170, but we
Okay.
upped it to 200.
So
Make it
I would support personally a, you know, capital planning recommending, you know, the project up to $200,000. But I think it's just worth acknowledging that, you know, the scenario that Jim described of both kind of two parts of the project it would be a bigger, you know, a bigger project than $200,000. But again, I think we're all sort of hoping that these federal funds will actually ultimately pay for the project. And so if that were not to happen, then I do think we have, like, there's probably, you know, a more complicated discussion to have about, like, what's the appropriate scope of the project, given that we would have to pay for it, you know, ourselves, as opposed to relying on the feds.
But that is also a discussion for the finance committee, not for us.
Correct.
Okay, so then, do you have a motion?
Yeah, so I guess I would make a motion to recommend a capital project improving the HVAC control system up to $200,000, contingent on grant funds not being available. That was wordy, but.
No, that's fine. That's exactly what I wanted. Okay, is there any, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. I thought you were asleep. You had me worried. It's such a nice day. I wouldn't blame you for being asleep. Okay, so we have a motion, and we have a motion made and a seconded. Is there any further discussion?
So this is a motion to recommend
To the finance
to the
committee,
Finance Committee,
an article,
to FinCom, an article to appropriate, or what,
no, to fund
to fund.
this HVAC, whatever.
Want to call it an upgrade?
Yeah,
Overhaul.
an
Yeah,
upgrade.
okay.
Oh,
Pardon? Becky?
It's an upgrade on
Yeah.
the
Yeah, I'll just call it the upgrade. Okay, yeah.
Okay,
control system upgrade.
Well, it's an HVAC system upgrade, right?
right.
See, the
Because
controls.
there might be more than just controls,
Okay,
what we're saying.
let's say, keep it more general. for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. Okay. Up to $200,000. Contingent on grant funding not being available. is definitely not nice that the federal government does this just at the time when we're all having town meetings.
Well, they could
But-
not think of us at all.
I know,
we
I
get-
know.
Yeah, we're not gonna turn away the money if it's,
No, not
if we
at
can use
all.
it for this, yeah.
The danger is that we'll get the money and then they'll give us a, you've got to have it used by X, which is why we have to actually get this done.
2024, isn't it, Becky?
I don't know what, oh, that's not bad. That's 3 more years.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose, yeah, if you're doing water or sewer projects, it takes that long.
Yeah.
So, okay, so we have a motion, we have a second. Now, is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. And it is a vote. And now I will be reporting, and if you'd like to stay on, feel free, to the Finance Committee in another 4 minutes. Assuming, Jim, that
So-
you get a quorum.
So Ellen,
Okay.
I'm not
Yeah.
missing anything, right? We've, as a committee, we've recommended 2 projects,
Correct.
this one and the annual appropriation for the library building fund.
Correct, AJ.
And that's it, right?
That's it.
Okay.
Yeah, we turned down the cruiser. And that was and the business with the doors is being funded out of money that was appropriated last year. So,
And the additional request for funding for the doors was denied.
All right. So we are adjourning the meeting at,
yes, we are.
No, we're
27.
No,
not.
no, well, okay, wait a minute.
oh,
No, you're not adjourning the meeting. The meeting
Okay.
is staying open.
ah,
And the Finance Committee is also legally posted and they're going to jump on.
Okay, so they have to
And-
then start their meeting.
In
Right.
3
and they
minutes,
will-
yeah.
They will meet with you guys
Okay,
and at 5 o'clock, you guys will jump off and the Select Board and Personnel Board is going to join the Finance Committee.
okay.
it's complicated.
We got a
We're
roller
still
coaster.
going on and being joined by the Finance Committee. That's the,
Yes, we
Yeah.
are.
So not adjourned yet.
Okay. Hi, Susie.
Hi, y'all.
You all. Since when are you from Texas or down south?
It's hot out there.
It's beautiful
Is
out
it
there.
really 80 degrees?
Yeah.
It was when I went to Amherst after I got done with work. It was glorious.
But it's much too dry.
Yeah, well, that's what worries me.
Hard on the garden.
Well, I'm worried about it for the potential of fires.
Yes, fires especially.
After all, there's a big one going on, or there was yesterday up in Williamsburg in a state forest.
Oh, really? I didn't hear
Yeah.
about that. Yeah.
Not Williamsburg, Williamstown.
Williamstown?
Yeah. I don't know what the state forest, I can't remember what the name of the state forest is, but it
Oh,
was,
That's not that far away.
no, well, Williamstown
mean-
is a little bit far away, but
Oh,
you gotta,
oh,
it's gotta,
Williamstown, yeah, well,
it's
yeah.
gotta jump the river. So, but still, I dread it because it is so dry.
Mhm.
But I don't know what we can't do anything about it. I mean,
No,
just hope that nobody gets stupid with their matches or what have you.
yeah.
Okay. And what constitutes a quorum for you?
They have 4 as a quorum for Finance Committee. Hi, Melody.
Hi, Melanie.
Hey there.
Okay, 1, 2. AJ, are you on FinCom?
I am, yes.
3 and 4. So you have a quorum.
Or it was, yeah.
Yeah, our chair, I'm sure, is coming on.
And who's that, please? I thought you were chair.
No, that's Jim Walton.
Oh, the other Jim.
Please.
Too many Jims. All I knew is somebody said Jim was the chair. So when you came, I figured you were the chair.
Oh, you're talking to Jim Hemingway.
Yeah. I don't know. They're Jims. That's all I know. Uh,
Okay.
oops, here comes the other Jim.
Hey, Jim.
Hi, Jim. I think you have a quorum.
Good,
Gordon.
good evening or afternoon or whatever it is.
I think it's still afternoon technically.
Okay. How's everybody?
Wonderful.
Great.
Enjoying the warm weather.
Alan, how you been?
Oh, I'm fine.
Hmm.
Totally enjoying the warm weather.
It's more coming.
Yeah, I know. That's great. I much prefer summer to winter.
So Jim, we have a quorum. You can call the meeting to order for us.
Yeah, we're missing George and,
Bob has said
Bob?
he's not going to be here
okay.
unless a miracle happens.
All right, so we have 5 out of 7. Let's call the FinCom meeting order.
Okay, 8:31, 4:31. Okay.
So are we gonna, Ellen, are we just gonna focus on the one HVAC project, or?
I have no idea. What does your agenda say?
That's all
You're
we
running
have.
the meeting now because my meeting's over.
Oh, okay. So
No,
I
no,
think-
your meeting is not over, Ellen.
No, but it's over for us.
Paul gets very
Any
confusing.
motions. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
I know.
Uh-huh.
But
No,
anyway.
you're
so-
still in full session. I mean, you're
Right.
gonna
Right,
share what you've done so far. But you're
Exactly.
still in full
But-
session and you could
So-
do anything.
Yeah, so I think for us, our interest is the elementary school heating system and the next steps. As I
Okay.
understand it, if someone sees differently, please speak out from the finance committee, but that's my understanding of our
Okay.
area for focus.
Okay, well, first of all, I am probably supposed to report to you that we also approved the $25,000 for the library.
Yeah,
Okay, well,
Yep.
technically I have to tell you what we've done.
okay.
And the other thing, dealing with the HVAC units, or upgrade, I understand that last night or recently, you all approved the cost of an article for the engineering study.
Yeah, I think it was
Okay.
$17,000. Does that sound
Yeah,
about right?
I
Correct.
guess so, yes.
Mhm.
Okay, so therefore, today we approved now, one of the problems with this whole situation is that we have to do this work in the summer. Because being in the school, you can't have the children running around when you're doing the work. And so therefore, because of the timing and all, and the fact that we know we have an appropriation of some sort from the federal government, but don't know what it's going to cover, as you're aware, we voted to ask you to put an article on the town meeting warrant to fund an upgrade of the HVAC at the school for an amount not to exceed $200,000, contingent on grant funding not being available. In other words, this means that if we get grant funding, then there's not going to be any money from the town, or not as much money from the town. And if there's not, then the town come up with the money. Because we're, as you understand, and I know you're probably more aware of it than I am, that things are really getting scrunched right now because we have a deadline to get the warrant done for town meeting.
Yeah, now you said up to $200,000, Alan. I think
Yes.
it was last night, at least at one point, I thought we talked within a finance committee of a range of from like 175 to 350 or.
Oh, okay. Well, that's fine. I just
Well,
chose a number above the 170 or 175, which was one of the suggestions that one of the companies made. So
Jim, I
if you
could
want to
just-
go up higher than that, that's fine. I mean, that's your doing.
Yeah,
But because we don't know what it's going to cost, of
Yeah.
course, because we don't have the engineering study.
Right.
Hello,
So Jim,
George.
just to fill in, Jim, so the source of that $200,000 amount that capital planning just discussed is really this, the higher of the two estimates that we received from Nexus for the overhaul of the control system, and so which came in at around $170,000 or so. And so the discussion we had last night that I think Bob spoke to was the idea that there may be a recommendation from the engineer to actually upgrade the ventilation system itself, which would obviously then expand that project beyond just upgrade, overall, an overhaul of the control systems. So, so I think that's where
Okay.
the larger end of that range would come into play is if the engineer and various committees supported the idea of expanding the project to include a overhaul of the ventilation system.
Yeah, thanks for the clarification, AJ. I just want to make sure we're sending, we have the same message that we're communicating from the finance committee that, and we're in sync with capital planning.
I did not know of your discussion last night.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew you had taken on yourself to approve the article for the engineering, but beyond that, I didn't know you were talking numbers last night. And I mean, frankly,
We're a finance
don't have a
committee, Ellen.
problem.
We're a finance committee. That's all we do is talk numbers.
I'm sure, but I didn't know how much you would have discussed this issue, but you're right.
We
But anyway,
weren't
I
talking
don't
about, we weren't talking about it in the context of another warrant article, but it's this
Future.
report that that the committee makes available to the town for, and so one of the sections of that report lists the future capital projects or potential capital projects. And so when we got to that HVAC, elementary school HVAC, we were talking about a pretty broad range of potential costs there.
And I actually agree with you. It's, because I don't know anything about HVAC, to be totally honest with you. But I'm not terribly comfortable saying, well, it has to be below a certain amount when we don't even know what they're going to do. So I kind of like what you were talking of, making it a broader range. And hopefully when the engineering report comes in, it'll be satisfactory that we won't be on that high end. So if we do not to exceed, and then, and do contingent on grant funding not being available, we've, I think, maybe covered all your bases, but that's up to you to decide how you want to word it. But we definitely did approve the need for the work.
Jim, I think you had your hand up.
Yes, let me go into the engineering side of this a little bit, since I've been down at the school and I've looked at what needs to be done. There is the overhaul of the heating system, of course. It's the electronics, the computer that controls it, and its control of all of the boiler, of the circulators, the works. But there is also the other part of it, which has to do with the existing air control system. Now, Jamrog, in order for us to have met, or the school to have met, the standards for air circulation during the COVID crisis, which means there has to be a replacement every 4 hours minimum, in order to consider the school to be the air to be healthy, so to speak. Jamrog jammed all of the air circulator, pneumatically controlled air circulating systems fully open. So a large part of this repair and overhaul has to do with repairing that existing system. And I cannot believe that we can't get money from the federal government for that, since it's directly COVID related. But whether we can get money for the heating system and the electronics and all of that is another matter altogether. And we're going to put faith in Becky for that, because maybe she can figure out a way that we can use some of that $510,000. But what I'm trying to say is that the engineering is split between the heating system itself and the ventilations in the existing ventilation system. And then at a future time, we're talking about a new ventilation system that will be introduced, but that's not this summer. That will probably be next summer, if it looks that especially if it looks that we can get the money for it from the feds.
Susie.
So I know that concerned citizens would want to know that if we spend 200,000, which is for the controls and the heating system, the controls control the ventilation and the heating system, that if we move on to the engineer recommends the whole building ventilation, it will be able to utilize what we put into it with the 200,000.
I guess I'm not quite understanding your question.
Well, I see
I-
three things. One, the engineering study, which will
Yeah.
recommend a solution. And the solution may also include the whole building project.
Yes, yes.
And then the second pot of money is not to exceed 200,000, which I understand it would be the controls overhaul for both the ventilation and the heating system. Am I understanding that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It-
No, Becky's saying no.
I'm sorry, I had to take that call. Jim, I'm just a little confused on if you're saying the engineering study also includes the ventilation piece, because what Bob told me was he did not receive the engineering quote for the ventilation piece.
I think he was talking about the big project at a future time, which and which would be a sort of a whole addition to the existing ventilation system that's in the building now. But the study that the folks in Greenfield are going to, if we go with them for $17,000, will be to work on both the heating system and the existing ventilation system, which is pneumatically controlled. I've seen the valves that all those valves need to be replaced and, converted over so that they can be, controlled by the new system. So it's not a separate, it's all a part of one package. But later on, he is thinking, and I think others are thinking too, that we could replace, especially if federal money is readily available, a system that would be controllable not only by this new system, but would add outdoor temperature. It gets a little bit complicated, but this is a separate project that would come down the road in perhaps next year, not this year. That's my understanding.
But what you're saying, I understand Susie's question is.
200,000 is not for this future project. The 200,000 is for this present overhaul of the existing air control and heating system in the Shutesbury Elementary School.
But I think Susie's question was the work would be done this summer. Would that then be added to with the other thing, or would they have to start all over again? I think that's what you were saying.
No, it would
Yeah,
be adding to, in other words, the new system. I don't quite understand all of the aspects of what is proposed, but it would be like putting new ventilators on the roof. I'm not quite sure where that would go, but we need to definitely overhaul the existing system, and both ventilation and heat. And that's what we're talking about here right now.
Susie?
And because you were talking about, Ellen was talking about it being summer work, are we talking about committing to the 200,000 for this summer?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And then in addition to that, if the engineers recommend a full ventilation system, would that be done this summer also?
If it's not necessary, there probably won't be time. I mean,
No, it's not, all of the new ventilation system, let's say new in quotation marks, that Bob was talking about and that he's been discussing with engineers, is not a part of this at all. We're just going to work on the existing system, which is pneumatically controlled, and it's been sort of jammed wide open in order so that the school can meet the federal standard, or the federal COVID standard for refreshing air in the building. And we're losing a lot of heat that way because we don't have any regulation on it. It's just wide open. And so that is what, this repair and overhaul is aimed at in part. And that's the part we ought to be able to get federal money for.
Susie?
So the FinCom would, somebody would create a warrant article for the FinCom to recommend the 200,000 for this warrant for FY22.
Mm-hmm.
And at this point, we would be saying, from a FinCom position, we would say where that money's coming from. And we do know that Becky thought the American Rescue Act would not be a reimbursing program, right? Or would it, if we did it, would they reimburse us for it, do you think? Is that part of their process?
Yeah, I
Okay.
think it will be.
Oh,
What I was saying on the engineering, if we already have the engineering complete, I'm not sure if we could get that, that paid for,
Mhm.
because of the timing, I don't know.
Okay, but you
Like-
think the other one, the 200,000 probably would be reimbursed if we
Yeah.
can get it through that program.
Yep, because what they're doing, I believe they're 50% of the funds are going to be allocated shortly, and then I think the next 50%, another amount, I think they're going to spread it over 3 years potentially, unless you use it up quicker, but you have 3 years to get projects done.
Becky, I recall reading something somewhere about March being the cutoff date. If you had an engineering study done before then, or a project, sort of in the past, that forget it, it wouldn't be covered. But since we're doing engineering after the March cutoff date, it probably would be covered, because this is a new project as opposed to rehashing an old one, which the feds definitely are not going to pay for. So I think
know the March deadline was a line drawn in the sand for
Yeah,
the first
yeah.
round of COVID money. I haven't read that in the American Rescue.
Oh,
But the
okay.
first round, it definitely was.
Yeah.
Anything done prior to March, you didn't get any reimbursement for.
Yeah, but I think I just think old projects aren't recyclable, so to speak, if that word makes
Yeah.
any sense. And this is a new project, so we ought to be in good shape for being able to apply for
Right.
for reimbursement. Yeah.
Yeah.
If we learn that we need a full new ventilation system throughout the school, would that be a separate project? We'd be looking at it as a separate project?
Yes.
Okay.
Like a part two. Yeah.
A part two. Yeah. And
But
since the money is being unfolded year after year, we could go for that perhaps the following year.
Yeah. So if that's the case, then what we have in our current plan, capital plan, is that up to $200,000 is probably okay for what we're focusing on right now, right?
Yes. Yeah. We have to pay the bills.
Yeah.
One way or another. And if we get reimbursement, that'll be great.
Okay.
We don't have that in our plan, do we?
No, it's just in the report for the future.
Oh, so we're gonna, because we're talking about the warrant for 22, probably need to amend the report a little bit, and there'll be a warrant article. There'll probably be a warrant article, and we'll have to recommend it, and that'll happen.
Yeah, and the capital plan had roughed out a warrant article language, but it doesn't have a funding source. If in lieu of if we don't get grant funding, and I think it would need one.
George is motioning.
That was my point. That was going to be my question.
Oh.
What would we decide to use for the funding? Because that's going to have an effect on, some of these other decisions we're making. We've decided to use free cash for the roof. We decided to use one of the stabilization funds for culvert. What would we use for the HVAC if it turned out it wasn't eligible for federal funding? I don't know. And I suppose we're suggesting we have an article to move 350 from free cash to stabilization. Can we use some of that? Just use the stabilization. I don't know.
I think that's probably right, George. I mean, I think we're all still, this is a funny discussion because we're sort of all hopeful that we're actually not going to have to pay out of our wallet, town's wallet, for this project. But of course, we do need a backup plan in the event that we can't, it's not an appropriate use of those funds.
But yeah,
But
okay.
yeah, it's,
I'm sorry, AJ.
yeah, no, I was
Just-
just, I was just agreeing that I think the, it seems to me the logical sort of backup plan would be to use the stabilization funds to pay for it. If contingent on grant funds not being available.
Maybe the thing to do is to move some free cash before July 1st, because after that point, we don't have access to free cash until it gets certified. To move some over to capital stabilization to be able to, at least if we need to, the money will be there.
You're
Well,
saying
we're-
beyond the amount we've already decided to transfer?
Well, maybe yes, yeah.
But we can't transfer before July 1st.
Not without a special town meeting to do, or a meeting maybe before the town meeting to do it.
No, I think Jim is saying that to identify the free cash funding source in the warrant, which can be done before July 1st.
Yeah, but not actually physically do the transfer,
Right,
which is what I think I thought he was
Yeah.
talking about.
right.
I'm sorry, Becky, could you repeat that again?
I believe if you authorize funding for out of free cash, you don't have to wait till July 1st.
Mm,
Just
What is
on the
that?
warrant, just on the special town meeting. That's what you're saying, right, Becky? At special
Well,
town, meeting?
like if you pass
I mean, at town-
the
annual
the
town. meeting.
repair, if you pass something at annual town meeting, but it's such a moot point now because it's going to be halfway through June. But the free cash, you don't have to wait till July 1st, but once it's appropriated for that annual town meeting, you can use it at any time. You don't have to wait till
Mhm.
August or July. You can spend it once it's authorized.
Given that, I think because there's such a low probability, I think we're all pretty certain that the American Rescue Plan really is going to pay for this. I don't think we have to really worry too much about it. We've got plenty of funds in the stabilization account. We'll have over $1 million in stabilization account in the new year. So it's covered if we have to. And
Yeah.
I don't want to drop free cash any lower than we already are, because right now, if every warrant article passes, we're going to be below 700,000 in free cash. So I think stabilization is the way to do it. And that's what stabilization is for. It's to protect us against spikes in spending. And this will take care of it. If, again, that low probability event happens and the Fed says no.
Susie, and then Ellen.
And then,
Was this your meeting, Ellen?
this is our
Pardon?
meeting. And we talked last night about the use for capital stabilization or stabilization for big projects that are capital, and can we get 2/3 of a vote for? And I believe this 200,000 would qualify for that. So we've already gone down this road last night.
Yeah, I know Bob would agree with it.
Mhm.
I guess the question is, do we need an article that is like a contingent? I think the word that AJ used was contingent, and the contingent that we do not get funding,
mhm.
that we would draw on the stabilization account.
Which one of them? That's what I mean.
Well, I said stabilization as opposed to capital
No,
stabilization.
no, okay, get it.
Yeah,
Can I ask a question?
yeah, George.
Last night we voted to spend $17,000 on the engineering. Refresh my memory. We decided to use stabilization to do that.
That was free cash. No?
That was free cash.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I had it in the wrong place on my schedule. That's why I'm asking.
Let me just confirm that.
No,
No, it was stabilization funds. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's what I had in my schedule. That seems odd that we did that, but yeah, actually, I think that was the Melody's question. Isn't it usually the minimis? All right. So now we're saying 17 for engineering and 200,000 for the actual work if required, if the Fed won't pay for it.
right. And our report didn't even deal with the 200,000. Our report dealt with the 175 to 350 range for the next possible whole building, blah, blah, blah. So we do have to do this. this will be a capital plan warrant article or a select board, and all the part we need to do is provide the FinCom recommends and recommend the source, which we could make a motion to do that.
Ellen, this would be a warrant article sponsored by capital planning, correct?
Somebody tell me, I don't know. I mean, the other one, the 25,000 I know is going to be ours, but I don't know about, I mean, it came to us, but
Yeah, what
given
I was
what's
thinking.
going on, I don't know if it would be finance, me, select board. I have no clue.
It can be the select board or capital planning. If capital planning wants to sponsor, I'll put it in. If not, select board would sponsor.
I can do it, but it'd be
Your
far
call,
easier.
Ellen.
Be far easier to have the select board do it on my point, but anyway, sure, I mean, I can do it. I'll do it, make it easy. They got enough to do at that town meeting, God knows.
Well, and cap plan would probably recommend as well as the FinCom recommend.
Oh, yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, we already voted it, so.
All right, I'm gonna add it in as article. Oh, I'll wait till you vote, sorry.
Yeah, so maybe I'll make a motion that FinCom recommends the use of $200,000 of stabilization funds for the elementary school HVAC upgrade, contingent on grant funds not being available for that purpose.
Second.
Second. Any further discussion?
Let's vote.
Let's vote.
Arvanitis, aye.
Archer, I.
Hemingway, I.
Cashew, aye.
Mosier, aye.
Walton, aye.
So I guess I gotta do that report again.
Ah,
Sorry about that.
Sorry,
Susie.
Susie.
I wouldn't do it before the end of the next part of the.
All right.
Okay,
We owe you a
Never
beer or
ends.
something, yeah.
We're gonna go right to the wire.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
Good.
okay. Oh,
Well, we did our part. Any other news?
AJ, would you send me the language that you just read, just to make sure?
Yes.
I think I have it right, but just as a second.
Okay, I'll email you.
Thank you very much.
okay.
Now it's time for your next meeting, so I think my committee can safely leave unless you're a member of one of the other committees.
And we do have some of that,
Yeah, I know.
right, AJ?
Okay, well, anyway, everyone, have a great day and enjoy the warm weather.
Okay, thank
Take care, Ellen.
Thank you, Ellen.
Yeah.
Thank you, Michael.
Steve,
Bye-bye.
good night.
Take care.
Yeah.
Oh, I should have asked, I hope
What?
Michael, I was gonna ask Michael to remind Rita.
Oh,
I might, I know Melissa is down the hall. I'll go see if she's ready. And
Where am I?
Good, there she is.
I got too many
Yes, I
screens.
had to switch from work to play.
This is your play. Oh, my God.
Melissa, we need to talk, Melissa.
I know, right?
Counselor needed. Emergency.
Intervention.
Well, the heat's
Water,
getting
all
to
of
you.
that.
Yeah.
I did get outside to enjoy the weather today, so that was a good thing.
Good.
And my computer is, of course. All right, well, I will worry about the next meeting when we get to the next meeting because this computer's not acting properly.
uh-oh.
All right, well, that's okay. We'll work with it. We'll go with it. Because I can see all of the people on the screen and everyone's frozen.
Ah, that's not good.
No, so I'm just gonna see what do I have open that's interfering. No, I don't want that. Okay. Becky, I know you're probably moving and talking. I don't see. Can anybody raise their hand and wave for a second? Okay. I've got a completely frozen screen here.
Oh, we can hear you. Do you think you should log on, log off? Would that help?
Oh, it's thinking. Oh, there we go. I can see people. It's all dancing again.
Hmm.
Okay.
Should we wave again?
I saw you, George. Thank you.
Okay.
Are we ready? Are we waiting for Rita?
Yeah.
Okay. I see Becky's on the phone.
Unmute. She went straight into the 5:30 section, so she'll be here in a minute.
Here.
We'll give her a second.
Rita's
There
here.
she is.
There she. Wow, that was quick, Rita. Okay. So the select board called themselves to order. Person, I don't see George is on the personnel. I am. Melody is.
And
Yeah, that's our quorum.
That's our quorum. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Peg wasn't going to be able to make it.
That's right. She wasn't.
Okay. All right. FinCom was already in order. Becky, are we visiting FinCom or are we starting all over? I think we're visiting. Are we?
It's everybody has their own meetings posted, so you're all legally posted to, so there's 2 meetings combined.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Where would we like to start? The select board has made a motion to, well, I can start from, where would you like us to start from this?
Okay, I
Does
think
anyone have a point?
the reason the personnel board, maybe George could speak to it, but the personnel board asked that the 3 boards come together because of to talk about what the action the select board took as a policy issue. Got confused with the new COLA policy, so it's a chance for the select board to explain how that happened and that and be clear on the vote that you all took, and then have a talk about it.
Okay. George, did you want to introduce? I know Becky just did. I can start in on what I sort of went over at the board.
Why don't I give a little historical perspective, and that is the finance committee had heard Becky that the select board had made the decision to make the COLA 2% instead of 1.75. Based on policy that was approved, it was going to be 1.75, and we heard that the select board increased it to 2%. So some members on the finance committee asked, we have this policy where if we're going to do something extraordinary, then we would want the 3 boards to meet. And so that was questioned by a number of members of the finance committee. And Melody and I talked about it, and we wanted to talk, and we talked about it with the personnel board. And basically the finance committee decided to go with 1.75% because we hadn't had that meeting. And we asked Becky to create a COVID bonus line, which she did. I believe it's $1,800 right now. And bonuses could be issued out of that. So we wanted to really hear from the select board, hear what you really want to do, see if we want to amend our percentage increase or do something else. That's basically what brings us here today.
Okay, thank you, George. And I can go into, because it was my idea, so I brought it to the select board as a thought, a little bit on a whim. So how it occurred was, and let me read the minutes from our section, and then maybe we go from there, okay? Just as a starting point. So the select board did a COLA review. Makepeace O'Neill recommends the select board consider adding 0.25% to the 1.75% COLA that the personnel board put forth. The purpose of the increase is to say thank you to all the town hall employees who have prevailed during such an unusual time and worked in conditions that were consistently changing. Sign notes having similar thoughts, especially related to staff holding elections, town meetings, and assessing priorities. Farrell agrees to make an exception for this unusual year, though affirms the agreement to use the standard formula. Farrell moves the select board approve a 2% COLA for this year. Makepeace O'Neill suggests amending the motion to note that the select board accepts the 1.75 COLA recommended by the personnel board and adds 0.25% as a pandemic thank you. Farrell moves and Stein seconds the motion as stated by Makepeace O'Neill. The roll call vote, all three of us voted for it, so the motion carried. And so a little bit of background to that was it was important for the 1.75% to stand and that policy to stand. I think, and April and Rita can jump in. This was adding, this was an addition to, this wasn't changing the policy that was there. It was adding to it as a pandemic thank you. We've had a lot of employees that have had their workplaces tossed in chaos like all of us have experienced. And I thought bringing this forward, it was important for us to acknowledge that challenge this year. But it wasn't, again, it wasn't to change the policy. A policy should stand. This was in addition to. So that's kind of where we sat at that. That's what we voted. So go ahead, George.
Well, just one thing about the policy. The policy does state if the three boards meet and agree, we can go outside of the lines of that standard policy. So is that what the select board is asking us to do?
Well, maybe at this point it is, given the conversations that have happened in the three boards. Rita and April, is that kind of what we're bringing today to the table to do that sort of thing this year to fit with the policy also in an unusual year? The policy did state the three boards could change the recommended amount of COLA.
That sounds perfectly reasonable to me. You know, the intent was not to go outside of what we'd agreed to. It really was to acknowledge the extraordinary conditions that employees in this town have had to work through this year.
So I guess the question that I have that I didn't raise when we did this, when we had the vote to sort of accept the 1.75 as the policy stated, then the additional 0.25 is that permanently added onto salary, or is it seen as a one-time benefit and therefore is not does not become part of the base salary? Because I think there's
I think my intention was it was a kind of a one-time thing.
Because that makes a difference how we do this, right?
Right.
So, you know, if we were going to do that $1,800 as a thank you or whatever we're calling it, then that should be voted separately, I would assume.
I saw two hands, Jim and George. Oh, and I see a Jim.
Rita's raising one of the issues that we raised in the finance committee. And that was the concern that the way it was worded and it came across to us,
Yeah.
like it was a 2% COLA. And that would be built on from year to year. And that's why we came up with this, a new proposal to separate the two.
Yeah. Yeah,
So-
and that I believe was our intent.
Yeah.
So we just didn't vote it that, or wasn't it voted explicitly that way?
So the issue with the 0.25 being distributed as a one-time payment to the employees, I'm sure the treasurer can do it through the payroll, but if you just do that on everybody's base salary, you're gonna have some people getting a $7 check. I think the lowest person actually would have been $4 before taxes. So I think Mike Vinsky's letter might have said it. You might be better off taking the 1,800. I don't know what's the right thing to do, but and give a uniform amount to everybody, $50 to everybody. I forget how many people it would be, Becky. 40.
I think it was 42 or 40.
42 is what I remember.
Yeah.
So at $50 a person, do your math, what does that come out to?
It's a little over 2,000.
Yeah, 2,100.
Right.
So, do we want to do that? Because if we just did 2.5, a 1/4% of their pay, it's almost insulting. As opposed to here's a gift card, buy yourself dinner or something.
It would be nice to round it up to 50.
Hmm.
I like this idea.
So my
I think
question, so I have, go ahead, Ajay, you had your hand up. I might change my question.
Jim said exactly what I was gonna.
Okay, so here's my one thought about the percentage versus the one lump sum, is that there are some employees that were working 40 hours a week and in conditions that were putting themselves at risk. And then there are some employees that didn't have that number of hours or weren't affected in that same way. So if we do across the board, it is equal across the board, but is it equitable in that way to show those employees that were, every day either in town hall or at the fire station, at the highway barn, at the police going in and out of, stopping, like those ones are a little more, those positions were slightly more in the weeds of all of this and slightly riskier than say, and I'll pick on my husband. He works as the custodian in the building, who only works 14 hours a week or 2 weeks. That's just a question. So is it equitable to do it that way? Give everybody equally across the board, or should it be a percentage of hours or something like that? That makes it complicated, I know.
Well, again, back to the, there are certain group that they work so few hours and your pay is so low, their portion would be very minor. Although I suppose maybe we could do $25, $50, and $75 gifts dependent on, and set up some sort of a criteria to determine who falls into which category, or even a 50 and a 25 or a 60 and a 30. I don't know.
Okay. I think that answers that question though, George, if in a one-time gift.
Just have to come up with criteria to determine who fits in which categories.
Michael.
Yeah, I kind of put myself in the position of an employee with this, and I understand this last concept of different categories and everything like that, but it's still, someone is going to get the small end of the stick and someone's going to get the big end of the stick. And it just, if you're trying to, provide a work environment where, everyone's pulling together for the same goal and everything, I just don't see where someone getting more than somebody else is going to help that along. I really think, if you truly want to do a thank you sort of thing, it ought to be the same amount, and it ought to be the same for everybody. And whatever the amount is, it doesn't matter to me, but I really think if you want to encourage that, team spirit and working together, I think you've got to consider everybody was pulling together, and they all should get the same amount of thank you.
So I wonder if the criteria would be, if we did have a tiered system, people who work X number of hours, people who work this chunk of hours, people who work this chunk of hours, would that be a way of doing it? I think I like what, Mike's, reminding us that this is about really helping the team, and it's really saying thank you for a horrendous year for what people have had to do.
Didn't we just divide it by under 20 hours and under and 20 plus hours, sort of the part-time, whatever, however it qualifies for part-time versus fully benefited employees? I don't know what that cutoff is. Is that 22 and a half hours?
No,
Yeah.
it's 20.
It's 20 hours. Okay, so why not do it that way?
Say
That
that
would
again,
make it
Rita.
easier.
Say,
21
what I
above.
was saying is that you have a group of people who work part-time, so it's 20 or fewer hours, and then if you're, the rest is 20 plus hours.
So it'd be 21 plus.
Yeah, 21 plus. And I just had a question. The select board doesn't fall into this, do we?
Oh, God.
No.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, we were-
So I was like, I don't want to be
Oh,
voting on this.
Oh,
Actually, you
Becky
do.
raised her hand, maybe she disagrees.
You could take yourselves out of it.
please
Yeah,
do.
so we're counted in that 42.
Yep, your stipend employees, just like the tree warden or other people.
Town moderator.
Yeah, well, yeah.
So could we pull ourselves out of that?
I think that's the appropriate thing
yes.
to do.
Yes.
There's something a little,
Odd about that. Yeah.
so would it be, what?
Go ahead,
I
George.
was going to ask Becky, can you tell from the list you have, do you have the hours on it? Can you tell how many fall into the cutoff, under the cutoff? Over?
I will, I'm searching for that. If you get back to me in about a minute and a half, I will try to get that.
Well, in the minute,
Did we have an amount? Do we have do we have an amount that we would like to set the cards at or the gifts at?
20
how about
20
30 and 50?
30 and 50?
Just a suggestion,
That's a
not just
suggestion.
50% of the higher tier, but maybe a little more than 50%. Can't do much with $25.
No, it's not even enough for gas anymore.
I think I got some hands going here.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was looking down at my paper. I see Jim and Susie. Jim first, then Susie.
How about a gift card instead of cash? A gift card like to Trader Joe's or something like that. Why not that? You know, the cash is sort of not too glamorous. A gift card might be a more thoughtful approach.
We would probably want to check with the treasurer to see what we are able to give.
I think,
Okay.
yeah, we will. I think we can give gift cards.
Okay. Susie.
I also want to remember that this is a select board choice of a bonus. It's in their purview. So, you know, you might want to hear ideas, but I feel it's really important to remember this is coming from the select board, and they should do what makes sense to them and is easy and fair in their minds.
Thank you, Susie.
Well, the only thing I would say to that, Susie, is, you know, the personnel board would like to have, you know, maybe can help a little with that decision. Remember, this is gross pay. There are gift rules with the IRS where you can give a gift card or something. I don't know what the limit is on that because I haven't done payroll in a long time, but I think the treasurer might have something to say about that as well.
Yeah, I think we should just double check with the treasurer and make sure we're not violating anything. Maybe before we set the amounts, because that might determine it. Thank you, George.
But we should have the gross amount, and we should decide on how much we're gonna allocate towards this, and then do the percentages later.
Yeah, I know Becky's trying to figure out the numbers now so we can get a grasp on.
Because we need a number for the warrant.
Yeah.
Right. That's what I was saying, so.
Yep.
Jim?
I haven't been called. From the finance committee, we have built into the budget. I don't know exactly what the amount is. Is it about $1,800?
$1,850.
18. So that, you know, it's just for everybody's information, we just plug that in based on what we thought we knew on the 0.25% across the number of employees. So for whatever that's worth, there is an 1850 built into the budget separately for this as a bonus.
And we just took ourselves out to Rita in April, so that'll lower the number that were needed, which will adjust the amount ultimately, right?
Right. Yeah, where is that line? Is it in the budget that I've got?
Miscellaneous section. It's at the end of it, right, Paul?
Okay.
It's line 175.
Yep.
So Rita and
1850.
April, how did, I know George tossed this out, the 50 and then 50 and 30. How are you feeling about those two amounts, or do we really want to check in with the register, with the treasurer to make sure?
I'm not sure, it may get just too complicated giving gift cards. It's just, a bonus check might be the simplest way to do it.
We could do it that way too.
It's probably taxable then.
It
Oh,
is, yeah.
of course it is.
Unless you
And
try
I
to
don't think
figure out
gift
how to
cards
gross
are.
it up, and then it would be determined on what everybody's withholdings are, and that gets very complicated.
Yeah, the gift cards are much simpler.
Okay.
They could be Visa gift cards, so people can use them anywhere too. They don't have to be,
okay,
like a specific store. George.
On the IRS website, I found something that said the IRS has ruled previously in particular case that items with a value exceeding 100 could not be considered de minimis. So I think $100 is our limit, so we're probably okay. And then secondly, gift cards, I think it's a great idea. It's very simple to do. You can even get them, like you can go to the grocery store and get them for Amex or Visa cards where they can be used anywhere. The employee doesn't have to use it at Trader Joe's, but those cost money. So we might want to budget, there might be an additional fee, so we might want to make sure that we cover that fee as well.
Yeah, they're usually about $3.95. I think at Market Basket's $3.95 per card, I think.
Really? I don't think I've ever paid a fee on a.
Those are for
when you
the
buy
credit
it.
card ones that can be used at any store. Those have a fee.
So if we can give, if we can give a check under $100 and it's not taxed, that might be easiest. We don't want this taxed, for sure.
Right. I think it would be if it's in a check, it has to go through payroll.
Yeah.
At least in mine that I've gotten from my employer, all of them have to go through
Yeah,
payroll.
it has to go.
If it goes in the payroll, taxes automatically get withheld.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
gift
right.
card ideas.
Gift card, it is, yes.
Becky, do you have a breakdown of
I apologize, but my file has disappeared.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe what we could do is just approve the 1850 that was incorporated into the budget, and then the select board can vote the allocation after we have the numbers, and somewhere in the range of 30 and 50.
Yeah, that sounds fine.
One more hand up, Melody.
Not to muddy the waters too much, but what about, I know in the past when I've gotten bonuses and things, another thing that people appreciate is time off. Could we give them a day off in addition? Paid day off.
Wonder how that would work with the ones that only do a few hours here and there.
Yeah,
you have
that
to
would be
prorate it what a person's day is. So a 20-hour week person would get 4 hours off if that's considered a day.
Right.
It makes it more complicated for those that only work a couple hours, right, a day.
I'll take a day off from select board. Make it a Tuesday.
Post a meeting and said, sorry, select board is off today.
Rita's off today.
We're fishing.
It's a very nice gesture. It really is.
Yeah.
The kind of person I am.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Well, it's definitely a thought. Maybe the two together would be a good way, What do you think? Select board.
God, that sounds, it's starting to get complicated. How would you do that?
How do you get your work?
We have
done?
so many part-time employees.
I think the gift card is the way to go. It's just simple, it's direct, it's personable. And I think it solves a lot of these problems.
Yeah.
And maybe we can even, as select board members, kick it up a notch and sign thank you cards to go with the gift card.
With the gift card. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
That would be good.
So are we settled on those numbers? Are they too low? What?
So I apologize, I can't find this. You really need
a number.
A number.
Could you just work backwards from the 1850 and just figure out a breakdown that
It was,
will back into that number?
no, because I need the spreadsheet. George, I sent it to you. Is there any chance you have it?
Yes, let me look. You did send it to me, didn't you? I was wondering if I saw it on the screen or if you actually sent it. Let me check, take a look.
I
'cause if
think
have
you put it up on the screen.
Okay, then it's probably in my personnel folder here.
Yeah.
While they're looking for that, Rita and April, do the numbers of 30 and 50 feel good? With 30 being 20 and under and 50 being 21 and over for hours?
That's fine, except really we should work backwards from a figure.
No, we
If we
should.
don't have all the numbers, we can't do all
Right.
the calculations tonight. I think we should accept the 1850 and
Yeah.
then go backwards from there and just have a proportional to 30 to 50. So it's, do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
For the 20 hours and under, and then 20 plus hours.
I think that's what we have
Rather
to
than
do.
trying to like do that number tonight, I think if we agree upon the gross amount that we're dedicating towards this, then we can do the actual calculations once we have.
Yeah, and we need to be done in 4 minutes.
Okay.
Oh,
well,
shoot.
do I
All
hear-
right, I'm not gonna get this in 4 minutes.
So why don't we, so we don't have to vote to approve the 1850, do we? Or is that,
No,
it's in the budget.
Do it.
Maybe we should just to put it on record.
If you do 1850,
Yes.
you'll be able to cover 25 at $50 and 14 at $30. If you think there's more at $30, 1850 is gonna cover it. Plus I put in 395 times 39, that's 154. So 1850, Becky, if you think there's more than 14 people in the $30 category below 20 hours, 1850 will cover it.
I think the issue is we might, it's really.
That's my quick and dirty math.
Okay, but the select board could make adjustment when they go through, because they're going to be approving the budget and the warrant article tonight of the budget. So we'll have it, if we need to make an increase, a small increase, we can make it then.
Okay.
And well, also, if okay. I was gonna say, we also have the FinCom reserve.
Right. We can cover it that way. FinCom reserve, keep the number at 1850, move full steam ahead and we'll cover it.
Yes.
Or it could be select board reserve.
It could be, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how much we've got in there. All right.
1,000.
Well,
Okay.
it's nice to know that everybody's on board about the gesture, the meaning and the, just the spirit of this. It's been a rough
thank
year.
you all. Thank you all.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay.
So we have to disappear and appear somewhere else.
We do. We have to change meeting Zooms.
Do we want to
We're
close
still-
the finance committee meeting?
Yeah.
Bring that to an end?
I make a motion if FinCom adjourns its meeting.
Second.
Okay. Vote.
Select board should probably adjourn and
Cover
re-adjourn.
night
so-
aside.
No, you don't
Okay.
have to adjourn. You guys don't have to adjourn.
We can just, we can stay here.
Cover night aside.
You have to go to that second site.
Oh,
Okay, let me see if I've got the right one.
Mosier, aye.
Bye.
Sorry, Cashew eye.
See y'all.
Aye.
Aye.
Hi,
Good night,